there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Media Watch. I'm your host, Dr. Savvy, and we are back with some fantastic guests like we normally do. You get a chance to check out all my books, which I'm still trying to work through, and all my wonderful microphones and technology that we've got to use remotely in order to bring the show to you. So this time around, we've got wonderful guests. First of all, I'd like to introduce Am Gohar. She's a very well-renowned, what's the best way to describe for you? PA, PR, social media expert, a great expert in the areas of marketing, and also a good friend of mine. It doesn't let me off any tickets, unfortunately, because he follows the law, because he is the law. And I'd like to introduce you to Chief Superintendent of Police, Raj Kohli. Raj, good to have you on and good to see you after such a long time.
It's been such a long time, Savvy, that my diary's got slightly grayer. I'm concerned that your bookshelf appears to have more colouring books than actual books of writing, but that's okay.
You guessed right that they are colouring books, and I'm working myself through them. Right, now, Hobbycraft visit is always good to get more crayons that I can use. Okay, so we wanted to talk about, because you guys, both of you, are really up in terms of social media. I mean, you're using it as a tool, that's Raj, and then Am, you're using it as a basic, part of the strategy that you have when you have clients and you onboard them and you make sure that they have a clear message and for communication in terms of all the marketing that they need to do for their products and services. The main thing to talk about today is I want to kind of really look at it from a perspective of, is social media kind of like from the positive? Is it positive? And also there's some negative. Is it also very negative as well? That's quite a bland, wide question. But the first thing to talk about is, we see Donald Trump use it quite a lot. Do you think it's a tool that helps us kind of, it's a great tool for democracy? Is it a facilitator for democracy? Do you want to go first, Raj? What do you think? Do you think that it helps to get people to talk about their opinions, to make sure that they've got a voice? I know we don't have to talk about anything in particular, whether it be any particular life that matters, but people do start to use social media type tools to put out their hashtags to communicate and to kind of come under the same thread in terms of the discussion. And sometimes it can be quite negative as well in terms of people getting a bit defensive. Do you think it's a tool for democracy?
Democracy with a small d, definitely. I think the small man or woman gets to say their piece. On social media, I think it becomes difficult when big business gets involved and democracy with a big D starts to take effect. So you hear about targeted campaigns, election campaigns, spreading disinformation, taking advantage of the software. You pose the question, is social media a good or a bad thing? I think the question is almost irrelevant. It's here to stay. We may as well just own and accept it. I think it's a tool for democracy in as much as it's a tool for the small man or woman to get their voice heard.
Okay, and what do you think? I mean, I know we had a discussion earlier about whether or not this kind of technology is a force for, Ross says, anyone's got an opinion, right? And it's a platform for them to put their opinions across. But when it comes to the commercial side of it, sometimes it can be useful tools, useful innovation that doesn't get even. They do say you can have the best app in the entire universe, but if no one knows about it, then it's difficult, isn't it? Or a best product or a best service, And there's so many people, there's so much competition.
Absolutely. And I think, what Raj said, social media is here to stay. And especially with what's been happening in the last couple months, we are living in a virtual world. So regardless of what people think, social media is always going to be there. And if your business or your brand or your profile was not on social media before, that's what you're going to have to get on, I'm afraid, because we're now going to be coming into a very digital world to live in.
Absolutely. So you think that it's going to be a dependency now, right? I mean, not everyone needs to have a Twitter account, right?
I think, dependent on what your brand or your business is about, there's so many social media platforms. You've got, it's not just Twitter, it's not just Instagram, there's YouTube, there's WhatsApp. People classify WhatsApp as a social media outlet because you're sending videos, you're sending images. You've got, again, I just said YouTube. YouTube is technically somebody's CV. it's technically, you know, yourself on there. It's your profile, and I
Yeah,
think different outlets will allow you to share different things. So, you know, for example, some brands may not really essentially need Twitter, but if they are building a specific profile for themselves, then yeah, I guess so. But not everybody needs a Facebook page, or not everybody needs Pinterest. So it really depends on what your business or your brand is about, or what you stand for, and what platforms are right for you. You know, the virtual world is always evolving. You know, Instagram's on a high, but there's going to be something else that's going to be coming out. You've got TikTok that's out, and what's going to come after TikTok? So there's always going to be a hype about something.
do you think it's because they talk about this thing in media? They talk about this the echo chamber. You know, like someone says something in one area, and then somebody else repeats it. And then there's also this issue that, oh, this is quite good. It's trending. If I talk about it as well, right? Maybe I'll be on trend as well. So do you think there's a danger that people exploit genuine messaging that's coming through for their own personal gain in terms of their own personality to be exposed? They're bigging themselves up rather than bigging the subject up, you know?
I think
So, I
this
mean,
is
it's a good point about being an echo chamber. Sorry, I'm jumping there. It's a good point. So I'll give you an example. When I was at Barkermont at Hounslow, someone messaged me saying, "Oh, Feltham's really bad. Someone set a car on fire, and it's terrible, and this, that, and the other." And I was quite concerned because I'd never heard of this car being set on fire. That's quite an unusual event. So I did some research, and it happened 10 years ago. But the person found it on Facebook and kind of implied it was happening now. So it is very dangerous. And the other bit around whether there's a true democracy or not is that you're allowed to be anonymous on most of these accounts. And what it does, real interestingly, is what people really think. So from anonymous accounts of what society's thinking. So all the good behavior that people might say in front of your face. Just go on Twitter and you see what people are really thinking. It's quite revealing, especially around Black Lives Matter. It's really revealing what people genuinely think about difficult subjects.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is that danger of having trolling, you know, as they call it, where people are, you know, really kind of attacking people. And I guess it's also it's an offence as well if you can find them, but it can be quite vicious. It's another form of stalking, right? And it can also destroy someone's confidence as well. If ultimately, you know, this person is relentless. I remember I was doing some work at Radio 2, and every morning it was the same person sending horrible Twitter messages to the person who I was actually a guest with. And I said, well, what's going on here? Well, so don't worry, every week we get it from the same person. It was almost like they were getting some kind of weird pleasure in actually destroying someone. The best thing is obviously to ignore that. But when it gets in your timeline, how many people are you going to block? Because they can delete it and recreate another profile, you know?
And I think this is also, you know, a very sad thing. So, as a creative business media strategist, and having been a founder of a PR agency, we represent so many individuals in the media world, and you know, to see the messages that they get bombarded with is absolutely ridiculed, and it plays such a big effect on, you know, their mental health. You know, everybody has has to have an opinion on a specific individual. It's an example. For example, that last week a young lady went missing, and then again, there's a lot of people that have an opinion of her having to share where she was. You know, it can be. It also brought a community together to actually find the individual, but at the same time, it has a negative connotation on it.
I think you're absolutely right now. And I forgot that, you know, we were going to talk about this. So without mentioning her name, she disappeared. But there are a lot of questions that people are asking online, and we don't have to answer it here, by the way, which is, you know, why? What did she do? Where did she go? You could argue it's none of her business. That's one argument. The other argument is that if there is some press released information about what actually happened, it shuts them up. But also, if it's more of I guess something you're doing to help people to say, well, actually, this could happen to you. Everyone's mind, unfortunately, goes to the negative. They always think about, oh, this happened because of X, Y, Z. Now, you know, having personally in my own life, you know, seen a lot of cases of of grooming and the rest of it. There's the use of terminology, and somebody recently said it's actually about the terms that people are using. So when someone says thug, right, it could mean something completely different. So the language that is being used is one point. The second point is, I agree, it's great. It's good that the community came together, and it's a useful aid to try and put out the things that we couldn't do before. Have you seen her? Have you looked last? Do you know this person? Could she have been in this particular location? So it's a brilliant tool, but it's really none of anyone's business, is it? And I don't know, Raj, how do you feel about that? I mean, it's a difficult one, right? Because on one side, it's being used as a tool. On the other side, people are just getting a little bit too close to wanting to know what happened, you know?
So to that particular case, and you'd expect me to say this, but if the appeal's not generated by the police, then it shouldn't be generated. So the police are the ones responsible for doing the risk assessment. And for this particular person, there may well be a backstory. She may not be missing. She may have just left, all that kind of stuff. Then, of course, people start to feel invested. They've spent time, they've messaged out, they've asked some questions, etc. So when she's found, they want to know the answer. They want to know the story. And so again, I want to know this. The real difficult particular scenario for all the things we talked about around, the motion for the original sharing of information. And I was uncomfortable because it wasn't generated by the police first. I got tagged into it.
Okay. Well, that's fine. I mean, I understand that. I mean, we weren't going to talk about what reasons or whatever, but I mean, just as a general thing, if it does come from the police, it's a good thing because obviously, I do some news reporting on another channel, and sometimes you find some fantastic good news stories. There was some tweets that happened from a metropolitan police centre where during the lockdown, people had made food and actually delivered it to the police station, and there's a lovely tweet that came from the police station saying, "Oh, thanks so much to that particular group that brought in some food, and we know that we're busy, and that it's difficult to get by." And I think that's a really nice positive use of that social media. And I know you, Raj, sometimes if there are people that have done some amazing stuff in your force, you do share positive news. It's a good form of communication, right?
Well, I think it's important to just lift the curtain and let people have a look behind what policing's about. That we're essentially human beings that are charged with doing seva, our seva policing and upholding law and justice, and also recognising that everyone gets to see a police officer. I mean, the chances are, Savvy, the only times you'll actually see a police officer is you've either been arrested or you've been a victim of crime, or there's some other crisis in your life. And in all those cases, it's not a circumstance. And so for the vast majority of people to see the human being that polices London, I think is really important. So that's why I do.
Okay, so that's good. You use it as a PR mechanism. Do you get you're at your own liberty to be clear and precise about what you put across, because you've got to be really careful of the way in which whatever you say is also can be misconstrued, right? So that's kind of like another negative aspect, that you could mean something in a real positive way, but someone's going to read it the wrong way, depending on their experience.
Yeah, I mean, there are many nuances, anything and everything that I write. So I talk about quite controversial subjects as well, around stop and search, around Black Lives Matters, around some issues that I picked up and I've got involved in. I got brickbats from people who don't like my position. It comes to, no doubt at some point somebody will make a complaint of something that I said, and that's okay. I know what the rules are. I try and stay within the rules. I try and always be respectful, but I also try and always be honest.
Okay, and so Am, I wanted to ask you, because we were talking about personalities before, earlier on in the day. Do you think that people receive things in terms of the messaging that they get because of their own personal experiences? You were talking about different personality types that,
yes.
you might send me a message and I'll go, really? But you don't really mean it that way,
I think because I've studied human behavior and psychometrics, you kind of understand the different personalities, and you've got four, right? So you've got the disc, the dominant, the influencer, the stability, the conscientious individual. Now, everybody has their own version of their world, Savvy. I have my own version, you've got your own version, Raj's got his own version. I may say something and you may think of it one way, Raj might think of it another way. So everybody takes that version into their own kind of world, if that makes sense. And everybody will have an opinion regardless. Everybody will either agree with you or disagree with you. And if you do something with honesty and integrity, it's not a bad thing. But I think people will always take things how they want to take it.
No, I agree. I think we just lost Raj for a second. I'm going to try and get him back. Um,
Am I back in the room?
oh, he's back again. He's back again. I was just typing to you and saying, this is the wonders of technology. I can do two things at the same time. Somebody tells me you're not on the screen. I can send you a message and I can listen to Am at the same time. That's multitasking. Who said that we couldn't multitask it?
Absolutely, it's a misnomer. It's a misnomer.
Absolutely. So Anne was just talking about different personalities. They're going to have different experiences. They're going to be different types of personalities, and they're going to take messaging in all kinds of ways. And you were saying, Raj, earlier on that you try your best to obviously, stay within, to phrase it in a way that isn't negative, or to paraphrase what you were saying. Really, I mean, if you do say something, it's your opinion, isn't it? At the end of the day.
Yeah, well, I don't want to be the guy that just gives the fairly stock bland answer that the three of us could make any number of quotes, whether it's from a politician or from a police officer or whoever, and it's a usual stock quote. You just change the day, date, time, place, and name, and the rest of the words are the same. So I try and personalize it. I'm not a fan of that kind of stock quote. It narks me because it doesn't. All it tells the recipient is that we couldn't be bothered bespoking the message. So I try and bother to bespoke the message.
That's good. You're putting thought into it, aren't you? That's the one thing. So let's talk about the final thing we were going to address today, which was how social media is actually adapting. We hinted on it earlier that obviously there are now technologies in China where you find a holiday online with a barcode, and then you kind of book it, and then your ticket comes to you, and you're not going backwards and forwards to email. And even now, people may not visit car showrooms or do some of the viewing of houses because it will all be done virtually. This proposes a new challenge to the way that we interface and we rely on that information. First of all, a negative perspective is, do you really believe what you see? But from a more positive perspective, there are more creative ways to do stuff. And what have you seen in terms of trending? Is there something that you feel is changing in the business world that maybe something like what Raj does, it could help in kind of more digital policing? I'm not talking about forensics of people hacking, but more in terms of how people can interact.
I think, well, within obviously the last couple of months, we have, well, the PR agency I have, we have several different clients in so many different industries, and each and every single one of them, we've had to adapt to virtual worlds. And it's about being creative. It's also about seeing what's going to work. And regardless of what, I said earlier, we are in a digital virtual world. So any business or brand we have is going to go virtual. And I think it's about being creative. What do people want to see more of? How, create the change, make the change. It's not about what's already happening or what are other people doing. It's about what can we do where we can engage further. So, even on social media, okay, do the police want to engage with the younger generation a lot more? It's about, showcasing what you guys do maybe behind the scenes on social media. It's about talking about what you've achieved and so on. And it's just looking at campaigns in a different way on a digital platform, on more digital platforms, and being more creative. And like I mentioned earlier as well to you, Savvy, we've implemented scan codes for our restaurants where you've got the whole complete menu, which you download onto your phone and you order onto that. So then, the waitress or waiter, sorry, will come over with your order. So it's just obviously things like that you've had to implement. We've had events which we were supposed to be doing, which turned into online events, which has been great because you've got a global event going on where anybody in the world can join. You've got dance events happening, you've got music events happening. I mentioned earlier a music platform, are doing a huge online gig, which is great. And I think we've just got to adapt and find new ways to move forward, creative ways, creative thinking. You mentioned earlier, car showrooms are now turning into virtual showrooms, which is great. So I think we've got to accept the fact that that old world is not there and accept that there is a new world coming in, which we've got to adapt to and make it into something that we want to create it into.
Absolutely. So, Raj, I mean, even now we see technology is moving into CCTV and that kind of stuff. I think Raj is there. Here he is. Yeah.
So
So
I'm still here.
CCTV is an OWL system as well, which is really powerful, and that
Yeah.
provides an amazing way for people to connect. You know.
Well, I'd probably take a slightly different view on the digitalization of everything. A lot of life is about experience. If your experience is based on what you see on a 6x4 inch screen, visit a car showroom, order your food. Where's the smell of the leather? Where is the conversation with the salesperson? Where is the thrill of getting £1,000 off that Golf GTR that you've wanted? All that kind of stuff. Where's that experiential stuff going? A lot of social media does appear to be about making life really easy. And so what we're doing is we're starting to take people out of the job market because, as Adam talks about, you don't need as many waiters and waitresses to deliver food because you can do all of this online. But what's the net benefit to society? We become disaggregated from who we are as a species. We are essentially pack animals. 80% of communication is non-verbal, but if you're not in the room, how do you pick up that 80% of non-verbal communication?
It's absolutely
However,
true. Yeah, if you're in a meeting, yeah, you
you
rely
know,
on seeing people's reaction. That's right.
I feel it's going
you
to
know, and
take
people
a
talk
little
about
now. I think we've got to recover from this situation. No one knows how much longer it's going to kind of take to kind of come into a new world. And of course, no one wants job losses. Nobody wants any of that. But we have to be adapting right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, so we talk about agile working like it's the panacea of work. And I get that work is a thing you do, not a place you go to. But agile working very quickly can become fragile working. How are you getting to connect if Savi's not on his game and you're not in the room with him, understanding that actually he's looking a bit disheveled, he's just not taking care, he's lost weight or he's whatever it might be. And you're missing that kind of pack animal. We all get together and that's how we understand and we develop our peers and our champions, and it's difficult to get that from an online presence only. But the stuff you referenced around these dances and music, absolutely, because what it does is it exposes people like myself who maybe wouldn't pay £50 to go and watch a particular concert, might pay £10 and actually think, do you know what, I really fancy that. So I'm not a naysayer. I'm just one of these. Be careful what we wish for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I
absolutely.
don't
Yeah.
want everything to go into a digital world, but I think with the current situation right now, we've got to kind of adapt and then hope we do somehow get back to. I think everybody misses that human contact and going to an event or going to a cinema, but I think we've also got to tread very carefully to when that will happen because I think, as psychometrics, I was talking to Savvy about earlier, you've got, the very conscientious stability kind of people who will be very cautious about the fact that there's no vaccine out and they don't want to go out. And also, I think when you live with maybe elderly individuals or people that have an underlying issue, you don't want to put those other individuals at risk. Where you've got the dominant individual or the influencer who are complete extrovert energies, they're the first ones that are going out, that are going to be drinking at a pub or a restaurant. So you've got to kind of be like, okay, you've got half the people that are going out and about, and then the rest are just still being very cautious. So it's going to take a lot of time for things to kind of go back into a new normal. But I think at this present, we've got to adapt to what we have, because no one wants to sit at home and like do nothing. And I think especially for people's mental states, we want people to still be there.
Yeah, sounds
There's a
good.
great
Unfortunately,
channel.
yeah,
I was going to say there's a
definitely.
great channel 4 series called Humans, which talks about what's the point of being a human if you've got nothing to do. One of the real benefits of this kind of digital world is we might save the planet through changing in green policies, not having to move quite as much stuff around, travel on buses, trains, etc. The planet had a chance to breathe. That's one of the benefits of where we're currently at. So it's not all doom and gloom.
Yeah, it's not all doom and gloom. And on that positive note, our time is up. But I want to say thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate it, Raj. Wonderful to connect again. And I hope to see you soon. Wonderful messages as well. There is a different normal. Maybe things will return to some sense of, what it was like before. But we are humans, and we can adapt. And we should always look for the positive side in whatever we have at the moment. And you're all doing some sterling great work. And I really appreciate all your time, because you both are extremely busy. And it's very easy for me to say, "Hey, come on the show and let's talk about stuff." But I really do appreciate the time that you set aside to give us your advice and all the positivity. Let's end on the positivity rather than all the fact that there's a negative side to social media. But this, I hope, has been a positive aspect of social media. So we'll see you soon. Rajiv Gakasa, Rajiv for there, and I'll catch up with you very, very soon in maybe a face-to-face situation.